What's up? It's your boy back at it again with another technical analysis in the series we like to call Underrated Throwers. Today we got a very special episode. Someone I consider a top 3 discus thrower of all time. I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate how special Lars Riedel was. He holds, I know this isn't an official world record, but the furthest non-reverse throw in competition ever. I think it's 7153 meters. I'll put it in the description, video description, along with his notable accomplishments and his height and weight and all that jazz. But he's a 5-time world champ, 1-time Olympic gold medalist, multiple-time Olympian. He should have won the Olympics. Sorry, Roma Sabaris. But he should have probably won in 92, but he was injured, so he couldn't compete. But he was the heavy favorite for that, so he should be a 2-time gold medalist for the Olympics, but he'll have to settle with 1, I guess. Oh well. And in the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, he threw at the time the Olympic record, which was 69 meters. 69.50 or something, which was broken later on in 2004 by Alekna, senior, Virgilius Alekna, who I'm debating whether to make a video about him. I don't think he's very underrated. He definitely shouldn't be, but I don't think Lars Riedel should be either. I don't think anybody who's won 5 world champs and dominated an entire decade and one of the best technicians ever should be underrated, but here we are. Because I never hear him get talked about enough. And to me, he's top. I personally believe he's the 3rd best discus thrower ever. Because I take into account accomplishments, PR, and consistency. Those are the things I value when I'm doing rankings. And I believe Alekna's 1, Gerd Kanter's 2, and Alekna's 3. And it's going to be very hard for someone to push those off for me for my top 3. But we're not here to list my top 3 or top 10 discus throwers. We're here to talk about the main man, the myth, the legend, Lars Riedel. So, let's begin. Let's just watch this throw a couple times. You'll just notice how compact he is in the ring, considering he's like 6'7 plus. I think he might be 6'8. I think he's 6'7. He's tall. Art Venegas always had a very funny quote, like, how do you throw? When he met Lars Riedel in the 96 Olympics in an elevator, and I think there's like an interview or something on YouTube about it. About him talking about it, but the gist of it was basically like he asked Lars Riedel, like, how do you throw far with such skinny legs? And I thought that was very funny. But he's right. I mean, Lars Riedel, he's definitely strong. I mean, you got to be strong at those 71 meters. I don't even know if he's weak, but he doesn't look big. Like, he doesn't look like if I were to look at him, I wouldn't think he's built like a 71 meter discus thrower. Like, when I look at other people throwing 71 plus, he's definitely on the smaller side in terms of like muscle mass, at least. Now, obviously, he makes up for it in a lot of things. So, let's begin. So, the first thing you'll notice is he's super offset. And he's not offset in the normal way. So you see people like Tom Walsh or like Zane Weir. A lot of people offset towards this sector, so they have more time to work around their left if they're right-handed and gain more momentum. He does the opposite, and I believe John Powell did this as well. And you'll notice, so with them, or with Lars, you'll tend to find that taller people, in discus that have really compact sweeps and tend to throw with this kind of offset. So I'm pretty sure, let me zoom out here. Yeah, so normally, so if that's the middle, normally he'd be lined up like here. So like his left foot would be like over here somewhere. But his left foot is lined up with the left sector line, where normally he'd be straddling the middle. So normally his center of gravity would be over here instead of over here. And I've always found that very interesting, and I tend to see it in tall people that have really compact sweeps. And you'll notice when he goes, he does have a wide sweep, but not really. Not his style. I really like for people that aren't maybe the biggest people on, like the strong. He doesn't rely on strength, I should say, to throw. If anything, Lars Riedel kind of throws a little bit like a woman. A lot of things he does, I see a lot in like Sandra Perkovic and a lot of really good women non-reversers. Because, as you can tell from his throw, he's extremely mobile for a man. Extremely mobile, especially in his shoulders. And that's also a key aspect of why I think he non-reverses rather than reverses. Is because normally when you're super mobile or hypermobile as a dude, you tend, the non-reverse will tend to favor you a little bit more than the reverse. Because in my opinion, it's unpopular opinion, the non-reverse does have the potential for further throws. It's just that a lot of people aren't built for a non-reverse. It's a very specific type of build. And there are a couple characteristics and that you have to throw far as a non-reverser. One is extremely solid block, two extremely good fundamentals, because the reverse, you can get away with some things and throw far. With a non-reverse, everything has to be perfect, basically, to throw far. Like you can't. There's no shortcuts. And three, the reason why I think the non-reverse has the potential to go further than a reverse is because you stay grounded so much longer. The non-reverse is dependent and is predicated on just staying on the ground and working around. So you're just always connected to the ground and you're always working it. Whereas the reverse, at some point you will leave the ground while it's in your hand. Now, obviously, the world record is held by a non-reverser, but at the time when he Jürgen Schultz, at the time where he broke the world record, it was a reverse. But for basically the rest of his career, he non-reversed. And I also think, well, the reason why he did that was basically because the non-reverse is also a little more consistent than the reverse. And I think that's also why Lars Riedel is a 5-time world champ, is because he was just so consistent, and why Robert Harding was a 3-time world champ, because the non-reverse is a very consistent. I equate it to kind of the glide for shot put. You need a very specific type of athlete to throw far in it, and when you do it right, it's very hard to be inconsistent with these techniques. But you have to have the right type of attributes and body type to throw far with a glide and shot put or the non-reverse and disc. So let's actually get, now that my rant is over about the reverse and non-reverse. And again, well, also I should say, the top 3 people are reversers, so what I said could just be total bullshit. Also, it's just my opinion. I believe to throw far as a reverser, you need to be able to throw far with a non-reverse. Even if you don't non-reverse in comp, because if you look at any competent reverser, they basically non-reverse with a little extra spice. Daniel Stahl's a perfect example of that. And same with a lot of people. A lot of really good 70-meter reversers. Alright, but we'll get into his throw. His throw specifically. So he's lined up this way. So it looks like he over-rotates, but he really doesn't, because he's actually just lined up. Well, actually on this throw he does over-rotate a little. But that's what you want to do, because you kind of have to over-rotate to get into the middle. And I think, so also, he also offsets like this, so it's a little easier to get a hip tuck into the middle. And another thing that people criticize, and what I never got, is that he doesn't keep his left arm long. Personally, I think that's stupid. Like, that you would criticize this. Well, okay, I shouldn't say it's stupid, because the textbook of throwing will basically say, keep both arms long. But the reality is, you got to keep both shoulders long. You can move your left arm across your body and stuff without really moving your shoulders that much. It's when your shoulders start doing funky stuff. And you notice his shoulders will stay long. Now the reason I think Alekna does this for the same reason as well, is because when you bring in that left arm, it really makes you turn super fast. It makes you stay a lot lower to the ground when you're in the air. And I see people shorten their left arm a lot when they do a hip curl in the middle, because it just makes it a little easier, and it makes your right foot land a little faster. Now you notice when he grounds, and I know it's kind of blurry, but his right foot is facing where he basically sprinted from. I think, me personally, I think Lars Riedel probably has the best hip curl out of anybody in history. And I don't know if anybody can even refute that. I mean, it's actually incredible. I don't know how he does that. Because most people, like if you were to offset like this, most people, it would be like here instead of there. And I think that's the reason why he has such success with the non-reverse. Because especially if you're going to do non-reverse, you really want to do a hip tuck, a hip curl, because that creates a tremendous amount of separation and really speeds up everything, especially your lower body. So he does his hip curl, and boom, he's landing there. And you'll notice, sorry, this is a really blurry, because this was in 96. Or 96 in Zurich. So the quality's a little dated, shall we say. But I think you guys can still see this. How he goes when he lands, so he keeps that left arm bent. But what you notice is that he goes out and around with his left shoulder. So his left shoulder is going wide. Alright? Now, I would recommend learning first, the standard left arm long and both arms long. But, like, I personally never threw far like that. I always threw far bent and stuff, because I was also a speed-dominated thrower, and I still am speed-oriented thrower. And I believe that a lot of speed-oriented throwers do this just because it's a lot easier to turn and have momentum. Now, it's very risky, and it's a pretty advanced thing to do. So, first, I would first I would focus on learning the fundamentals. If I was your coach, I would focus on keeping this left arm wide. And then once you start figuring out stuff, start experimenting with stuff that might work for you. Who knows? You could throw far like this, you know? The second furthest throw in history threw like this. He threw like this. A lot of throwers have thrown like this and thrown really far, all right? So if you hear someone say, oh, yeah, you need to keep your left arm long, tell them to shut the hell up, all right? Because it's your left shoulder that needs to stay long, not your left arm. And I think that gets really confused. Your shoulders are really what dictate everything, not your arm. You throw with your shoulder and your chest, and your arm is just kind of there. And I think Lars Riedel does a perfect example of this. So you're here. And because he does such an extraordinary hip curl, he's able to stay back super long because he's basically just turned and ready to throw. So his left foot grounds right there. Like the disc is so far, like a lot of men cannot catch a disc this far back and not pull the hell out of it. All right? Like that, it's crazy separation. Like the disc is back here and his hip is there. That is insane separation for someone this big and this powerful. All right, so he's here. And once again, just like I said in the Reese Hoffa video, it's harder to see in this video, but he's going to go out and around with that right knee. It's very important to do that because that keeps you grounded. It makes you a lot more rotational, and it keeps you over your right side and a lot more balanced. So he catches there with his left and just cranks. And you'll notice when he lands, he keeps a stiff right ankle, and his heel never drops. And I will say, on this throw, his heel, his right foot does stall a little bit, but it doesn't really matter because he's so pre-turned, it can stall for that little split second to wait for his left foot. And you'll tend to see the right foot stall a little bit when you do such a big hip curl because it doesn't really need to stop. Like, I mean, it doesn't really need to keep turning. If anything, that would be bad. If he kept turning the right foot, he would probably over-rotate and not be as separated in the front. So he has to stall for a split second. And it's literally like what, 3 frames? Like, that's really nothing, honestly. Like, it probably takes me like 3 frames to just get out of the back. I don't know. I've never counted. I'm just saying some bullshit. Anyway, let's get into this. So he works out and around. Now, it's important, and I had a discussion with one of my athletes I'm coaching right now about this. It's not just the right knee getting wide. It's, think about having your butt go out and around. Your right butt cheek go out and around. Or your right hip flexor go out and around. See, because if you just do your knee, you're probably going to bend back. Your butt's going to probably stick out. But you got your whole right side has to go out. Peter Malachowski from Poland also does this extremely well. Alright, but when you do that, you push against the ground so much more. And that's especially important when you're a non-reverser. So Lars Riedel and Robert Harding probably do the best job of this. And you're probably able to see it a lot better with a non-reverser. Not like reversers do this, but it happens a lot quicker in a reverse. Because you don't stay as grounded as long in a reverse. So you're here, he turns, and he's just turning. There's no lift. And that's another big difference between a non-reverse and a reverse. Is that this left knee will be bent slightly. Whereas a reverse, you want to lock it out once right before you throw it. Right before it leaves your hand, so that way you get off the ground in reverse. But with a non-reverse, you want to keep that left knee slightly bent so you actually stay grounded, because the second you extend that, you're going to go off the ground. And that's why I say there's a difference between a non-reverse and a reverser's non-reverse. Because a reverser's non-reverse, you'll extend the left knee, but you just won't reverse. So you just won't be grounded for as long as you would. It's basically like a shot put non-reverse, kinda. Because nobody really non-reverses in comp and shot put unless you're a glider. And even then, that's still kind of rare. So you want to keep, if you're going to be like a true non-reverser in competition, you want to keep that left knee slightly bent. Now, it's not extremely bent, but it's just like a little bit. Just a tiny little bit. Just enough for you to stay grounded. And he just works around that left side. So his left side, he blocks there. Right there. And his left side will not move at all. The disc is out of his hand from here. In those two frames, or that one frame, left side does not move at all. He has a flat left heel, which I think is very important to have if you're going to be a non-reverser in comp, is to have a flat left heel. Because the second you move this block, you're done. You're done. You're done. You're just done. You won't throw from a non-reverse if you move that block. And that's also why I think the non-reverse is a super good practice tool if you're a reverser as well, because it teaches you a very strong block, working the ground, and all the fundamentals. And once you get a non-reverse down, the reverse will just come naturally. Like sometimes you'll just, like I see this all the time in my coaching endeavors. Like some people just reverse on accident and they'll be like, oh, sorry. I'm like, no, that's good. That's really good. Excuse me. It's really good that you accidentally reversed, because that just means you did it right. You should never force a reverse. A reverse is basically a non-reverse, except you just kind of keep turning a little. So you don't really want to jump or anything. You just have a little. The reason people reverse is because you get a little more extra out and a little more height. So theoretically, it goes further. That's the reason why people reverse and not non-reverse. And it looks kind of cool. Even though me personally, I actually tend to like watching non-reversers, because it's just crazy the amount of tension they have when they throw. It's something else. So he throws right there. Everything is square. His shoulders facing. Oh my god, those lines. Everything is facing the sector, and he just releases. Boom. And he really tucks in this left side, and he keeps it bent this whole time. So you notice it's tucked, and then he goes around town, and boom. And he's still blocking even after it leaves his hand. His right foot has not moved. The discus is already probably at like 30 meters by now. And now his right foot moves. Right after his follow through. Like the amount of time he stays on the ground. Like you really hit a throw good. If you like a good non-reverse, your body doesn't really move that much. Like he could have just stuck this. But you do follow through. And the very important thing, if you're gonna non-reverse in comp, you'll see this with Robert Harding and Lars Riedel. You kinda the way to actually stay in the ring in a non-reverse is one, just doing it right. Because when you do any throw right, like even on a reverse or a non-reverse, if you do it right, you'll never foul ever. That's why you see like Ryan Krauser, he doesn't foul unless he throws like, I don't know, like 22, like 30, and he just walks out the front because it was a really bad throw, because that's just the world we're living in now, but he has the closest thing, I would say, the perfect technique. So, but you never really see him foot foul or anything, ever. I can't remember the last time I've seen him foot foul, to be completely honest. He has like the odd one once in a while when he's really chasing a throw. So, But the way to stay in the ring when you're a reverser is, one, just doing the throw correctly. And two, you'll notice how he drags his foot on the outside. So he's kind of like on the edge of his shoe. Oops. He's kind of on the edge of his shoe and he's like dragging it on the ground. And that slows down his momentum and lets him stay in the ring. So that's what you kind of want to do. That's basically a reverse for a non-reverser. And that's the way you stay in the ring if you're going to non-reverse in comp. But that's a decision for your coach to make. A lot of people cannot get away with non-reversing in comp. It takes an extremely specialized athlete to non-reverse and throw far in comp. But in my opinion, Lars Riedel has the world record in the non-reverse. Because, and a 5-time world champ, dominated an entire decade, one of the only people to ever beat Alekna in his prime. Gerd Kanter and Vazekas, although I don't know if I count him because he got his medals taken away because of drug ban. And Lars Riedel, probably the only people ever to ever beat a prime Alekna. And that right there, I mean, you're pretty much goated at that point. If you can beat the GOAT, I mean, shoot. But, you know, that's why I think he's underrated. And he probably has the just basic technique, gets everything down. The other thing, oh, sorry, I almost forgot. One of the other things that's very important with this kind of style is just stay low to the ground. And so you notice he doesn't really get, he kind of has like a Malachowski. He kind of throws a lot like Malachowski, actually. Well, I should say Malachowski throws a lot like him. In many ways. Because they're super compact. Now, Malachowski doesn't offset like this. But they have pretty much, honestly, similar sweeps. Similar hip, left arm placement. Similar hip curl. Similar catch. Similar release. Except Malachowski is like way over here. He does a thing where he really reaches. And Daniel Stahl does that too. Which is cool. I can't argue with someone who throws far doing that. Who throws over 70 meters do that. So, but that's why I think he's underrated. So once again, I'll put his personal best, his accomplishments. It's gonna be a very long list. And his height and weight if I can find him. And yeah, I hope you learned a lot from this. Oh my god, this actually went on quite a long time. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions in the comments and see y'all later.